So if there's one thing that I love is actually a good plan. And whenever you think about a recession, a depression, a collapse, the economy going crazy, honestly, that's pretty scary, right? Because you think about, I lose my job, I lose everything I have, and then here I am left broke with nothing to do. Now, I used to have a problem where I was in love with PPP, and that basically stands for perfect planned plans. I think that's what it stands for. I just made it up, okay? But I realized that whenever you try to plan a perfect plan, the idea is it never works, because we live in a world where basically anything can happen at any moment and it's actually unpredictable and you never know what's going to happen. So over the years, what I developed now is basically the IDK plans. I just don't know. I don't know plans, okay? And overall, when it comes to a plan, I plan for the absolute worst, and I hope for the best. So it's kind of like I'm very pessimistic, but I'm also very, very hoping that it doesn't come to that. But I figured that these plans tend to work the best. Whenever I plan for my retirement, I don't assume the market's gonna keep returning 11%. I say, well, let's see if it actually makes me 8%. If it makes 8%, that's great. If it makes 11%, then wow, that's pretty awesome. Whenever I think about, for example, how much money could I possibly live on, I can say, well, I can live on 2,000. Well, how about we make it 1,200 and raise the amount of money you can make to 2,500. I love planning pessimistic plans because it tend to work best. And whenever you have a very good outcome, you're always very well surprised. You always welcome it. But whenever you plan something that every single thing has to go right, those are terrible plans. You never want to do that. In engineering, you always want to have some flexibility, unless you're going to the moon, and that's a whole different thing, but this is life, okay? It's not really that complicated overall, although it could be, and it could feel like that sometimes. So in this video, I'm gonna tell you three things, just three things you can do to prepare for a recession, a collapse, if it happens in 2023, or if it happens in 2030. Who the heck knows, but it's better for you to be ready. And if you don't have a plan, then you're planning to fail. One thing I did not like in my household growing up is we did not plan. They hated planning in my household. And that made me love planning because although I can't predict the outcome, God has control. I always say, well, I'm gonna make the best plan I possibly can, and then let's just see what happens, okay? But planning is super, super important. And as always, guys, like this video on top. I also subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified. Now, the very first thing you need to do is you need to prepare. And preparation is not doing something now and saying, well, I did that, so now I'm ready. The answer is no. I wish it was like that. Nothing like that works in life, okay? Everything is consistency, discipline, and doing it over and over again. I spent 8 years in high school learning geometry. 8 years, that's ridiculous. I spent years in high school learning geometry. 2 days after I graduated, I couldn't even learn how to calculate a calculator. I just didn't remember anything. So if you don't use it, you will lose it. So the very first thing you need to do is, okay, you need to budget. And everyone hates budgeting whenever they hear about it the first time because they think a budget is going to restrict me. I make money, I should be able to enjoy it. But overall, a budget is personal. A budget in personal finance is personal to you. You don't have to budget like me. You have to budget how best it is for you to maintain it. So if you know you want to have in your budget Starbucks, then just put it in there. That way you can actually enjoy it. Okay, but have a budget that makes sense for you, that you actually enjoy, so that way you don't have to stop doing it. But do be realistic that if you have things that you can't afford in your budget, you will stay broke. And that's just honesty, okay? Number two is, you wanna know exactly what your baseline is versus what your want line is. Let me explain here, okay? A baseline is a budget that's around your needs. You have 4 needs in this life, and that's about it. That is basically shelter, utilities, groceries, and transportation. That is it. Nothing else you actually need. That is your baseline budget. My baseline budget is about $1,000, about a little less than that because I have a paid off home. I work very hard to get that done, okay? But it cost me a lot, by the way, in the sense that a lot of sacrifices. So that's another part of this video. But first, you want to have a baseline. What is your shelter, utilities, groceries, and transportation costs? What number is exactly that? Your bare bone budget. Absolutely, worst comes to worst, how much could you live on? Spaghetti and noodles? Noodles and spaghetti? That's what you're gonna eat for the rest of your life? What does that number look like? And then obviously, no one wants to live like that. For forever. So you gotta also know exactly what is your want budget, okay? In my want budget, I have going out to eat with my friends. I have tipping. I have going traveling. I have different aspects of my life in there that I know I don't need, but I know I want. So I put it in that budget to know exactly what it is, okay? Now, one rule here is, well, two rules is none of your wants can be financed. It have to be things you can actually pay for. Okay, so if you want an iPhone and you want to put it in there, you pay for it, obviously. Okay, you want to have fun, you're not doing it on credit cards, you're doing it on a debit card. Okay, so you put that in your want budget. Now, number three is you want to make sure you're willing to pay the price. You know, when I made my first want budget, I wanted a $400,000 house. I wanted a Tesla Model X. I wanted a lot of money per month to spend it on, I don't even know what. And then I did the costs, I did the math, and I was like, I'm gonna have to keep working forever to just be able to afford this stuff. And then I don't even know if I'm actually gonna get it. So then I said, you know what, that price is too high and I'm not willing to pay it. So I adjusted my want budget. And I said, you know, instead of a $100,000 car, how about we go for $30,000? Instead of a $400,000 house, how about we go for one that we can actually afford to pay off in cash? You know, so you gotta basically know the price of what you want and know if you're willing to pay it. Because if you're not willing to pay it, then why have it in there? That's the idea. And there is one more rule. You don't start practicing the want budget until you can afford to actually do it. That's called delayed gratification. You're not going to be going on crazy vacations, buying a car you can't afford if you know for a fact you don't have any investments, you don't have an emergency fund, you're still in debt. That's just basically neglect, and you don't want to do that, especially during a recession, especially for preparation for a recession. So obviously, your want budget is for you to have it here so you can work towards it. But your need budget is going to be what you're going to be going based on so you can actually build something. So now the second thing you want to do is you want to remove friction in your life. And friction is anything that holds you back in a sense. Friction is anything that makes it harder for you to actually get to your goal. Friction is anything that steals money from your cash flow. Friction is something that keeps you back from being able to accomplish your goal. So removing friction is not just remove it, that's it, but it's also removing part of something and adding something else. Okay, so picture this, for example, you just got a bike. All right, you rode the bike for a very long time, but all of a sudden you stop using it. Now you want to use it years later. Comes to find out, okay, the bike is rusty. The chain is rusty. You try to ride it, it's not going as fast as it used to. It feels like it's just clackling. And at some point, either the chain is gonna break or you're gonna break, because something's gonna break at a certain point with that bike because it's so rusty. So what do? In order to remove the friction on this bike, obviously, you gotta go ahead, you gotta clean the chain. You gotta clean the bike. You gotta remove the rust. And once you remove the rust, you don't just leave it like that, obviously, right? You also lubricate it with grease to protect it from more rust, to make it keep going smoothly. That's the idea. So tell me, what the heck? Is this a mechanic class? No, okay? There's a point to this. And the point is, in life, in finance, overall, that friction a lot of the times is going to be debt. So once you have no debt, once you have a paid off balance, as far as, for example, your credit cards, your student loan debt, your loans and all that stuff, that is going to remove a lot of friction, because you no longer have to worry about, when I get paid, I got to pay everybody else, and then I got to worry about myself. If I lose my job, these payments are going to go crazy. I have to consistently keep working to keep paying these people. The interest rates are high. Or I have to be super smart, because when that happens, then I'm gonna be messed up with these payments, okay? Once you remove that debt, it liberates you. And then your lubricant is going to be your emergency fund, because once you're debt free, you wanna work an emergency account. And the reason is very simple. It's what keeps you going. Knowing confidently that if something happens, you have 3 months to figure it out, or 4 months to figure it out. So picture this, okay? You have two people that work at the same company, make the same amount of money, but one person basically gets fired, the other one gets fired too, they both get laid off, but one person has a bunch of debt, student loan debt, credit card debt, car loan debt, all this debt, and the other person has an emergency fund and no debt, okay? The answer is, which one do you actually want to be in that case, okay? The answer is, obviously, common sense says, I want to be the person with less responsibilities and also a little base to actually be able to find a job you actually like and not just take the first opportunity possible. So no matter what you do, you can't mentally prepare yourself for a depression or a recession. No one that I know has gone through 25 years of a recession like they did, for example, in 1929. I don't know a single person that actually went through that, okay? That's some tough stuff. So all we can do right now is prepare for the worst and make sure we have the least amount of friction and make sure we have some security. So when that does happen, at some point it will happen. Markets tend to do these things, okay? Things tend to repeat in different ways, but they tend to repeat all the time. So if you have no debt, if you have an emergency fund, it puts you in a better position. So now, what's the third part of this preparation for the worst thing that can possibly happen? The third part is you want to stay positive. And why? Because what else are you going to do? You know, when you have no control over the economy, staying positive is the best thing you can possibly do. So that means you invest in yourself as if you're never going to lose your job or as if nothing bad is going to happen, because the more valuable you are as an employee, as a business owner, as whatever service you're providing, the less likely you are to basically be laid off or for your business to be cut down, because if you're valuable, you add value no matter what. Number two is you invest in the market. You invest in the economy. When you think about investing in retirement, think about, hey, I'm investing in the goose that lays the golden eggs. That's what we're all doing. We're putting money into our retirement funds, because overall, most people are investing into index funds. And that's just us basically putting money into the market. And that market is just companies that are part of the US that basically fund everything we basically do and move the economy here. That's what we're doing. We're feeding the golden goose. And then thirdly, you also want to make sure you pay off your home. You know, imagine this life, okay? Imagine if you have no debt. You have a fully funded emergency account. You have a bunch of money in your investment account. And imagine if you also have no mortgage anymore. That means your cost of living goes down significantly, right? Significantly. So you need like half the money or even 1/4 of the money that the average person basically needs to live the proper life that you actually want to live. Now that gives you a lot of freedom to say, hey, you know what I want to do? I want to spend money on vacations. I want to spend money on things, and that's fine. Or I want to give money away. I want to invest more money. That's fine, because you're able to actually do it because you live a life that's free of a lot of friction. Now, I'm not trying to sell you on something, but that's the plan. But if you want to have, for example, the full plan with all the details and the budgets and the spreadsheets and the whole thing and hours of content to actually go through it, I have a full course. It's called the Financial Freedom Course. And the link is down below. And I also have a coupon code. So if you want to get it, you get it. And you take the whole course. And it takes you from being in debt or not having financial freedom all the way to being financially free in the future. Now, think about this. Whenever I'm planning something, and I'm making a plan, planning for the worst and hoping for the best, you have to remember things take time to build. I'm not offering you something that's gonna happen overnight. I'm not offering you something that's gonna take like a year or 2 years. No, it's gonna take you a long time, maybe like 7 to 10 years. And maybe if you're lucky and you're crazy like I am, you'll do it like in 6 to 7 years like I did it, okay? Because I just took a lot of sacrifices. I went to Goodwill, and that was where I shopped for my clothes. I didn't go out. I didn't party. I still don't party. I still don't do any of those things, okay? But the point is, I made a lot of sacrifices in order to actually get there. So today, one thing I'm setting up my life for is, so when that time does happen, if the market goes down by 50% or 30%, I'm like, that sucks, but I'll be fine. If I lose my job and all my income, that sucks, but I'll be fine. You know, that's the type of thing, the type of life you want to set up where worst thing happens, you're prepared. Average results mean awesome to you, and beyond average results are just like, wow, that's awesome. But you're not dependent on them. So guys, overall, that is it for this video. So whenever you think about a recession, a depression, and planning and all this stuff, just plan and plan where things don't have to go well. That's the perfect plan, okay? The best plan is a plan that the plan doesn't have to work. And think about preparation, think about removing friction, and think about remaining optimistic. In the end, if the world ends, it ends. We can't control it. And if the world doesn't end, if you kept sturdy and you kept investing and you kept doing what you have to do, you'll be better off in the end, okay, guys? And that is it for this video. That's all I have to give you, okay, guys? As always, guys, comment down below free so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. On top of that, the link to the course is down below. Up here is another video. Over here is my Facebook subscribe. And as always, Long Term Team officially out.